people want to do business with people. So if you just get on there and, you're just pumping your company's profile, I mean, that's definitely going to create value. But I think that it might not create the same value. I think that there might be a day where somebody, sees, somebody out there and they have a different idea that isn't in, for instance, me. Somebody found me and was like, I have an idea. It's not paving, um, and it's lucrative and it's a good idea and they can help it go somewhere. Like I would want them to be able to do business with me, not just, let me come do their parking lot. I mean, I'm in this to, get my name out there and see what comes of it. And if nothing comes of it, I had a great time doing it. And the other thing that I've actually noticed with this that is actually more important to me than I think I talk about is like pictures are great. I have my iPhone's full of pictures of like my family and me and stuff, like if I got hit by a bus today, my kids would have, if I didn't do all this, they would have a bunch of pictures and stuff, some videos, whatever. But like, there's been some stuff that have been caught on, camera of like me interacting with them or their mom or me just being who I am and work. That I think they would get a lot of value from, the good times, the times where I was, frustrated with them, tell them to get their in the car, like though they have hours of footage that they could watch and they could connect with their dad, because they're young right now. So that's another thing I think that I don't know when I realized that. But it was something that, I realized at some point and was like, that's really cool because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like video shows, especially from the different view, like if I'm just filming me with them, it's not the same view as like when you have a lens on you interacting, it shows a different side. It's like you're there. So I feel like, if nothing came from this, at least there's all of that for them forever, unless the SD cards are damaged. But, so yeah, I mean, I think that, separating the brands is important.
That's really cool. And I kind of have the same mentality. Like I actually have just a dedicated safe because I've been filming my life for 5 years, basically every single day. I started out for the first 4 years just filming myself. And then recently in the past year and a bit, I have a full-time videographer that just follows us around all the time. And he's on site, but he films ultimately my life. Like if I'm up at 5 going for a run or something, like I want him to come out there and film that. And I think that it's really cool because of the same thing you said. Like, I think it's really cool for my kids, but I also, a big thing for me, and I can tell you're probably the same, is like, you want to create a legacy as well, like with your name. You just don't want to live and then just die. And then, Michael Melicia is just, oh yeah. I kind of knew him. Like you want to have your name there. And that's the same with me is I think it's really important that I leave something big behind. And that's just always been my mindset. Just like, go big or go home. And when I'm dead and gone, I want to leave something big. And I have hard drives in a safe that basically tell the last 5 years, 6 years of my life, growing the business, dealing with, multiple things all the way from not having kids. Now I have 2 kids. Like it's just crazy to be able to go back and like actually look at footage from 2017 to now and just to see how it changed and how it progressed and the problems that we had. And that's so cool. And I think long term, like if we grow this thing big enough, like it'd be really cool even down the road to like, like you can make a documentary or a show about it or something, and you have your entire life, on film and on camera. So I really think what you're doing is super smart with the content online, and I really, really dig it. Welcome back, everybody, to the ConExpo Conic podcast. I am your host, as always, Taylor White. This podcast is brought to you by our good friends over at Komatsu. With me today, somebody that I actually came across through scrolling on my own For You page on TikTok. He's all over Instagram as well, too. I have Michael Melicia from Coastal Paving with us here today. Thanks for being on the show, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, like I said, normally sometimes I get people, sent to us but sometimes they come naturally. And you definitely kind of came natural because I love your style of what you're putting out there. And you were in investing heavily into putting yourself on TikTok and Instagram and just kind of like short-term content. But I want to talk more into that further into the conversation. But I guess maybe give people a bit of a brief description of who you are, because you have a paving company. That's your actual business is Coastal Paving, right?
Yes, it is.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about like who you are and what you do.
So, Michael Melicia, founder and CEO of CPEX, which is Coastal Paving and Excavating. We do everything civil, engineering, construction. So underground utilities, site work, concrete, asphalt, municipal, city, and private, residential, and commercial as well. So, yeah, I mean, basically, a engineering firm that is, um, you know, just kind of making a name for itself, and started from $500 in a suitcase. Moved back to my hometown, and I started knocking on doors, doing just driveways and seal coats, and patchwork, small stuff. I didn't have a license when I first started, so I was just again knocking on doors, doing that stuff, and then I got my license in 2017, which is when Coastal Paving actually started, May of 2017, and then from there, just basically put all of my efforts into you know, building the business, growing through SEO and Google, ads, and kind of an online presence to, it's not fun to go knock on doors and not really, know what's coming your way. You kind of just have to go find it and make it happen, which takes a toll. I'm happy I went through it and did it because it taught me, a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, so basically that was my first thing when I started, was to, how do I make the phone ring without me having to go, bug people at their homes, etc. When I did that, I started to notice the value of it, and I just basically funneled all of my energy and money into the online presence, being first. When if you Google, paving near me, I wanted to be the one that popped up first, and we are. So between that and all my profits that came from every job, and every year I use that to buy more equipment and hire more talent. I don't have like a extensive background in the engineering sector. I grew up doing just like patching and sealing and so forth. So I didn't even know how to read plans when I started Coastal Paving. And I can read them, but I'm not the best at it, or I'm not the best at estimating, everything. So anything that I didn't know, any strengths I didn't have, I found it in other people, and or equipment. So I kind of looked at it like, a shovel compared to a skid steer or a loader. I'm the shovel, and if I could hire the loader and the skid steers and the excavators, is kind of the way I looked at it. And here we are today, 7 years later, as Coastal Paving CPEC.
Nice. I like that. Good summary. That was a lot. There's a lot there, though. I mean, I really respect that you understand your strengths. I pride myself with that as well too. Although I can't have the same story of saying I started off with $500. I have a family that has had a business, and now I'm third generation. But learning to delegate and learning to hire people that are smarter than you is definitely something that is a key takeaway from what you just said. Like they bug me in the office because like I'm a site guy. Like after this, I'm going to go screen some topsoil, and I own the business. But there's people in the office that are picking up where I leave off. So it's really important, kind of what you just said. But I like you started with, what started you with, like you said, you kind of grew up doing driveway sealing and stuff. Like, was it kind of like a teenage hustle for you? And then you're like, hey, like it was a game of volume after that. And then you're like, well, maybe I should offer paving. And then tell me about how you kind of started, and then how you made that leap to being like, okay, now I'm going to offer more services, bigger services, and do more.
I grew up into it. So I worked for my dad growing up. I dropped out in 8th grade. And I just worked for him. I didn't get a paycheck or anything. It was just kind of my contribution to, helping our family live, I guess. but I always looked at like the companies, the bigger companies around, and I always like, I admired it. I wanted our family company. Um, my dad always had a dream of like all like a family company, all of us like working together and so forth. The problem was, a lot of my family, I guess, got in their own way because everybody wanted to be the guy, and nobody wanted to share and nobody wanted to work together. So that kind of always stopped that dream. But it was a dream that I shared. I just seen why it wasn't working my whole life growing up. So I admired these other companies that were doing the things that I wanted to do. I didn't, we're working like when I started, we were on like a Malden paver. Like if we paved a driveway, it was like a big deal. The hopper paver, where you're shoveling in asphalt. And um, but I seen these other companies, and they presented, obviously much different. We were kind of like I don't know, a backyard boogie type of thing growing up. So it was something I always wanted to do. I just didn't have, I guess I never worked for those bigger companies. So I didn't get that I didn't get the experience per se. So it was like it was a plan in my head. And as far as like how I, made that leap and offer those services, I actually like on our website and like on the internet, I actually always offered those services from the start of 2017, even though I couldn't actually perform them. I knew if I got the job, I could one sub it out, to some, a different firm, which I've done when we were starting, or I could get, a job, and have a good down payment, or I already had the funds or whatever, and I could just buy the equipment necessary to get it done. So I kind of just put myself out there, and whatever jobs came, I found a way to get it done. Again, whether that was subbing it out or buying the equipment to get it done. So the services were actually always there, like on our website or as a service from our company. We offered paving, we offered concrete, we offered all these things. But when we first started, we technically internally couldn't perform them yet. So that's how it started.
I like that. That's awesome. What was like one of the biggest challenges, I guess, when you were starting out that you faced?
I had a lot of challenges. I mean, I think my age was one of them. I'm 30 years old, so when I started Coastal Paving, I was what, 23. So I had a big challenge of people, thinking I was too young. You I think a lot of people struggle to read a room. And I was always able to kind of read rooms. So when I could tell that somebody was questioning, my ability or my age, et cetera, um, I found a way to prove that to them. A lot of the times I would tell people, if you're not happy, don't pay me. I still have that same mindset. We don't have unhappy customers. I don't leave unhappy customers because I believe that an unhappy customer is actually a happy customer. You just haven't found a way to make them happy yet. Um, so that was kind of my like way of getting around that, adversity. So age was always a thing. And then also money was always a thing. Like I don't come from generational wealth in any way. I don't know anybody, with large sums of money that were able to help me. So having like capital was always a thing. So basically, like the capital that's ran the business has been generated by the business its whole life. Well, I should say its first 4 years of its life until I started to begin building a balance sheet and a P&L and building a company that banks and so forth actually wanted to invest in. So then, you know, once that happened, once I was able to actually get, funding for capital or equipment or what have you, I also had to have a different mindset than what I was taught. I was always taught, to buy things cash, don't take loans, et cetera. So I had to kind of shift that mindset into, um, you know, seeing that would be something that would actually hold the company back is by not taking those loans and knowing that those loans actually create more value for the company, and then using that to offset taxes and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of challenges. We're only 7 years old, so we still have challenges today, and I don't think that'll ever stop. I think that's just part of business. Um, but I think that I think that those challenges are what make and separate a good, a good entrepreneur and a good business, from a bad one. You got to be able to walk into those challenges, ready to fall on your face or ready to make it happen. There's only two letters that separate a worrier and a warrior. And I chose to be a warrior, and I still do. I don't always know that it's going to work out, but kind of like offering those services from the start, even when you can't perform them, most people would be worried about that. How am I going to get it done? And my my thought was always, we're going to figure out how to get it done.
Yeah, I resonate with that too. And it's like your ability to manage like risk, right? Because like I know some guys that are starting out in business and they're like, I don't know, you know, how like for us, we tackled a big sewer and water project last year, for an example, and it wasn't something we normally would do. And even my dad, he was very like, this isn't something that you guys should be doing. But my ability to manage risk and take risk was kind of always there. And I think that's kind of like what you're saying. Like my dad was the same maybe as when you grew up. My dad was like, don't take on a lot of debt. If you can't buy it outright, then you shouldn't buy it. And you're right with like it slows your growth, because if you want to grow into something that is large, that generally does just come with debt. But I really like your leadership style when you're like, worrier and warrior. How would you kind of describe your leadership style? Because especially even by judging by your Instagram, your reels, like just content that you actually put out there as well too. You seem to have really good culture with your guys and girls, and you seem like a really cool dude to work for, to be honest with you. How would you kind of describe your leadership style with your team?
So my leadership style is probably a lot different than most. Uh, Funny comparison is Michael Scott from The Office. I'm not a great manager, I guess, on paper, but again, it kind of comes down to reading the room and knowing humans for humans. And I've always felt that when you connect with people on a human level and understand that everyone has their own stories, their own cultures, their own beliefs, their own work ethic, you kind of can control the way that people perform. So my leadership style is very unorthodox and it's very lackadaisical, in a way. I've never been the person that is like, you're 2 minutes late. At the end of the day, if you're 2 minutes late today, but you're 20 minutes, early tomorrow, it's all going to equal out. We all hit traffic. We all have kids. A lot of us have kids to take school to school. We, some of us are arguing with our wives before we head out the door on some days. Like,
Never.
yeah, I'm easygoing when it comes to, the day in, day out stuff. Um, but I'm also like, when it's time to get down and we got to get done, you're either, again, you got to be a warrior when it's time to be a warrior. So, um, and that's where like my last name resonates a lot with the way I kind of lead is, I look at us like a small army, which is, the definition of a militia. And you're in or you're out, you're going to get this done, or you're going to leave everyone early because you got, you had plans. You got to go feed your goldfish or something. And we're all out there paving till 8 o'clock at night, and you drop out, if you're playing in the playoffs on a football field, and it's the last, few minutes of on the clock of the game, you know, a good player is not going to walk off the field because they have stuff to do, So it's a very tight knit group that is ready to do what's got to be done when it's time to do it. So yeah, my leadership style again is different, but it's definitely worked, and it's created a good core group of people. And I also believe that people want to enjoy going to work and have fun. I mean, the few jobs that I have had, it was like the same thing day in, day out. It's very like structured, and, this is, when you show up, this is when you clock out, this is when your lunchtime is. And for me personally, I don't like that structure. I like to kind of just, again, when it's time to do it, we do it. When we can chill a little bit, but just getting the job done is really what matters. Um, I don't know if that explained it right, but
Yeah, no, it did 100%. And it shows, honestly, true. And I want to know, like, what was your big push for like doing content? Like, how long have you been doing it? And I mean, you've found a lot of good success on it. I mean, you have a crap ton of followers as well, too. So, what was the push for doing content? Like, you mic yourself up. Sometimes you'll mic some other people up. Like, I found you organically by scrolling on my For You page and like seeing you on a paver, or you're talking to some guy or girl on site and you're just like cracking jokes, or like your wife would pull up on site. Like what was the reasoning behind like doing the content, and have you seen that have a positive impact on your business?
so the push was actually I was always like, one day I was on my phone and I was scrolling and watching, other people on social media, and it kind of hit me. I'm like, I'm the consumer, not the creator. And that was kind of what pushed me. When I first started, I was kind of like planning on doing more of like a, you know, like informational, motivational, inspirational type of, gig of me talking about business and how to grow your business and so forth. And I actually went on Bradley's podcast and kind of got some notes from him before I even started. And his big thing was like, just turn the camera on and be the content. Don't create content. And I took that without knowing it, and kind of, so I had 300 followers. I was on a private page. And this was, I think we just hit a year in July. So I've been doing it for a year. Um, and I just turned the camera on, and I didn't know what I was doing. I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm just literally, I guess, being the content. So I think I took that a little too like direct, because a lot of it doesn't exactly have like a, not all of it has like a meaning or a message behind it. Some of it does and some of it doesn't. But at the end of the day, I just turned the damn camera on and started uploading it. And it actually happened pretty quickly though. Like, I think like my seventh post got like 4 million views, which was the one of me with the leggings. And so like, as we're going, we start to learn like what's gonna click and what's gonna go. And the funny part about it is the things that like do well are things that are, are are kind of like silly, but connect with people in, psychological ways. I think, when it comes to like relationship stuff, or anything that somebody would share or connect with is what's showing to go. But yeah, I mean, as far as what started it, I mean, it really was just like, there's got to be a reason people are doing this. Let's give it a shot. Um, and that, and here we are. I mean, there's really, so far, there's no exact like plan with it, or, I don't exactly know what it all is, but, kind of like with anything, it's just like, you just go out there and do it, and see what comes from it. So far, good as came. Like when I first started though, the first couple months, I got some pushback from some customers, as well as like internally, like my office, some people or some like friends are like, it's not really a good look, it's not whatever. And I paused my page for a little bit, and a couple weeks went by, and I'm like, at the end of the day, like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm enjoying it. And if somebody has a problem with that, I guess maybe we shouldn't be doing business anyways. So I did definitely clean up a little bit. I have a potty mouth that's just natural. People say I have a mouth like a sailor. I have a mouth like a paver, which is much worse. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like, that's who I am. So, I cleaned it up definitely a little bit. It's still pretty, I still cuss. I still, say some,
That cost.
stuff. But honestly, what's funny about it is I don't think it's directly related. But we're on track of doubling last year's revenue. So it hasn't hurt business. I can't say that no one's ever came to me and like, I haven't gotten a job because of it. But I actually have had some inspectors make some comments, good comments, like, love watching your stuff, or, so forth. So nothing bad has came from it. I can't say anything directly good has came from it, uh, but we're still only a year in. So
No, I love that. And it's interesting because you said like, oh, some of the stuff seems like maybe we don't have there's no meaning to it or something. But honestly, Michael, there is meaning to everything. Like I like watching your stuff, even as a business owner as well that does create content. I pull value from the stuff that you necessarily might be like, there was no value in this video, but we put it up and people seem to like it. There's value in everything that you put online, whether it's like, okay, how's he communicating with this guy? How's he communicating with this person? Why would he post that over this? Like, I like dissecting that sort of stuff because I was the same when I started social media. I was like, I want to be a creator rather than a consumer. And it's been really interesting. And I love your point of like, there was some pushback and stuff because I had guys in the office that aren't with us anymore. And on their exit interviews were like, I just can't do the whole social media thing that you do. Like, it's awkward. I don't like talking to people on the weekend and then being like, oh, you see what Taylor put out on social media this weekend? Like, why would he do that? Like, you think that's good? Like, he jumped from an excavator bucket into a pond. Like, that's terrible. And like, to me, that's just me being me. But whenever you were talking about this, and this is something I'm struggling with currently, I'm actually taking a break from YouTube right now. Like, we've amassed a following of over 100,000 on YouTube and found some mediocre success on it. And it's almost like it kind of goes stagnant because I've been kind of half-assing it. And what I'm really struggling with is I want to show more, but I struggle, like, talking about purchasing of the equipment, the financing of the equipment, cash flow issues, cash flow problems, hiring, firing, that sort of stuff. But what you did was like when I was just at a lunch meeting with a buddy, and he's like, oh, who are you going to interview today? And I was showing him, he searched Coastal Paving. Coastal Paving, you have a decent amount of followers, but Michael Melicia, you have 90 something thousand followers. So it's under your own personal brand. Do you think that there's better value in you personally as you grow and continue online of being Michael Melicia, the content creator, or Coastal Paving content? Like under your company's brand or personally?
I mean, I personally wanted to do that purposely, because I do want to, um, you know, I want to live forever, and I guess a little bit, if that makes sense. It's I want my personal, name and my personal story, to be known and accessible. This probably isn't the podcast for that story, but like I plan to write a book. I have like an upbringing story that's, I think, valuable to a lot of, young men and women. I mean, people in general. So I definitely wanted to separate it. I also am, like I have a carpet cleaning business. I have other avenues that I want to go. So I wanted to separate it, and I want my name to be, if my name's on something, I want it to be a brand builder. And Coastal Paving is its own brand. And I also know that, like, to backtrack a little bit to like childhood, like I was robbed of a lot of childhood things that most children get to experience. Again, I'm not going to, it's not the right podcast or setting, but like, so that's where for me too, like, cause a lot of the things I do are immature. A lot of things I do are, silly, me being a child still, like, enjoying life, and not always, safe or whatever, like I don't want Coastal Paving to have an image of, of that, but I want, you know, to be who I am and show my true self and build that brand, but also have some connection there. Like, some of the things we do are connected. I do a lot of my stuff on site, which is Coastal site. But I think that the value is like, you want to see our profession, want to see, you want to see what kind of work we put out. You want to see the quality, you want to see the professionalism, all those things. Check out our Coastal Paving website page, see us in action, see us in person, and you're going to get all that, and you're going to see all that. We have a very good firm, a very respected firm, and we work with very respected, clients and customers. And I don't want to damage that or tarnish that, but I also want to, again, build an online brand and presence that, can be who I truly am. Because if I sat down and was, like I said, when I was going to start, I was going to do like this, whole business, informational thing. It's like, I know I've learned a lot of stuff and I have, I think, pretty good amount of knowledge. I've been through a lot of stuff that could help people in business, but that's not my true like identity, I guess. I'm not I kind of fell into a CEO role without, I'm really not a CEO. I'm an eighth grade dropout. Like, so I can't sit here in like a collared shirt and, slicked up hair. I can be that guy, but that's not the guy I am in my like everyday, like comfortable self. So that's where the separation came from. One, to protect Coastal's image. Two, to be able to be, my silly young, self that, just kind of, I just wanted to be who I was. And so, yeah, that was I don't know if that fully answered the question, but that was the separation for me and why. And that's the value that I see from separating it.
No, it did. And it gave me a lot to think about too, because it's true. Like if I could go back, like when people ask us questions or ask me questions about social media and stuff, like if I could go back, I have no regrets of anything I've ever done, but I would build it. I would start it just how kind of like you started it. I would separate and it be, Taylor White, and not kind of my construction, because you raised a good point of like, if you want to see the quality of work that we do, the professionalism, all that, check out kind of my construction. You want to see Taylor White, go to Taylor White. And those are two kind of separate things. So I think that you actually did a really good thing. Do you think people starting out, like you would kind of give them that advice if they're like, because honestly, nowadays, there's a lot of guys like you or I online that have businesses that are trying to grow online, right? And, create a stream of revenue through that and share their story, and it's its own business as well too. Do you think that you would kind of recommend that to them? Be like, keep it kind of separate, or would you, if you're just a straight and narrow suit and tie kind of guy, maybe keep it on the same page if you can be professional 24/7? But I don't know. Do you think that that's kind of smart for people to keep it separate or do it the same?
I think that everybody's situation is different. And everybody's personality is different. I would give the advice of whoever you are when the camera's off. That's who you should be when the camera's on for your personal brand.
I'm an
no, no. I
all the
mean,
time.
some people like there's this guy, I don't know his name, but he's like I think a tax advisor, and he's like a CPA or something. Maybe he's in that area, and his whole page is just him talking about tax expert advice and so forth. And I mean, it's great content, and you can tell that he's not acting like he's not. He knows what he's talking about. So I think, and I'm sure that that's creating a lot of value for him for his business. But what I will say is, it's not his business name on his, his page. So he kind of did the same thing. So I guess, yeah, I would recommend, you know, from what I know, I would say separate it and, create your own brand behind your name, because businesses also can come and go. I could sell CPEX. It could they could crash tomorrow and I'd start another one. But at the end of the day, I think that the true heart and grit and person behind those businesses is who people should see. And I think that those people want to do business with people. So if you just get on there and you're just pumping your company's profile, I mean, that's definitely going to create value. But I think that it might not create the same value. I think that there might be a day where somebody, sees, somebody out there and they have a different idea that isn't in, for instance, me. Somebody found me and was like, I have an idea. It's not paving, um, and it's lucrative and it's a good idea and they can help it go somewhere. Like I would want them to be able to do business with me, not just, let me come do their parking lot. I mean, I'm in this to, get my name out there and see what comes of it. And if nothing comes of it, I had a great time doing it. And the other thing that I've actually noticed with this that is actually more important to me than I think I talk about is like, pictures are great. I have my iPhone's full of pictures of like my family and me and stuff. Like if I got hit by a bus today, my kids would have, if I didn't do all this, they would have a bunch of pictures and stuff, some videos, whatever. But like there's been some stuff that have been caught on, camera of like me interacting with them or their mom or me just being who I am and work. Um, that I think they would get a lot of value from, the good times, the times where I was, frustrated with them, tell them to get in the car, like though they have hours of footage that they could watch and they could connect with their dad, because they're young right now. So that's another thing I think that I don't know when I realized that. But it was something that, I realized at some point and was like, that's really cool because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like video shows, especially from the different view. Like if I'm just filming me with them, it's not the same view as like when you have a lens on you interacting, it shows a different side. It's like you're there. So I feel like, if nothing came from this, at least there's all of that for them forever, unless the SD cards are damaged. But um so yeah, I mean I think that separating the brands is important.
That's really cool. And I kind of have the same mentality. Like I actually have just a dedicated safe because I've been filming my life for 5 years, basically every single day. I started out for the first 4 years just filming myself. And then recently in the past year and a bit, I have a full-time videographer that just follows us around all the time. And he's on site, but he films ultimately my life. Like if I'm up at 5 going for a run or something, like I want him to come out there and film that. And I think that it's really cool because of the same thing you said. Like, I think it's really cool for my kids, but I also, a big thing for me, and I can tell you're probably the same, is like, you want to create a legacy as well, like with your name. You just don't want to live and then just die. And then, Michael Melicia is just, oh yeah. I kind of knew him. Like you want to have your name there. And that's the same with me is I think it's really important that I leave something big behind. And that's just always been my mindset. Just like, go big or go home. And when I'm dead and gone, I want to leave something big. And I have hard drives in a safe that basically tell the last 5 years, 6 years of my life, growing the business, dealing with, multiple things all the way from not having kids. Now I have 2 kids. Like it's just crazy to be able to go back and like actually look at footage from 2017 to now and just to see how it changed and how it progressed and the problems that we had. And that's so cool. And I think long term, like if we grow this thing big enough, like it'd be really cool even down the road to like, like you can make a documentary or a show about it or something, and you have your entire life, on film and on camera. So I really think what you're doing is super smart with the content online. And I really, really dig it. But I think what's really important is like how you've managed to kind of, and I know like I would be interested once you have a book to listen to your story and all that stuff, because it sounds like you have kind of an interesting background or an upbringing. But what's really key is how you've managed to grow your business, and how you've managed to kind of start and go with that. And I'm just wondering, like, for the people listening, because there's a lot of younger guys, girls, and blue collar that want to really grow a business or start a business. Like, what kind of key points of advice or type of mindset should they have in order to create a successful business and to grow?
Well, I'll touch back on what I said earlier. Sometimes you're just 2 letters away from being what you need to be to get thing done that you want to get done. And that's worrier or warrior. I think, and that is actually a DNA thing. There's actually a DNA difference between somebody who worries and somebody who, a worrier and a warrior. And, I think that you can train that in some people. And I think some people just, kind of are maybe have it for whatever reason. But I think really the difference of the two is somebody who is willing to do what's needed to be done, regardless of if they know it's going to work or not. When a warrior goes into battle, they don't know if they're coming back or not, and that's been around for thousands of years. Right. And so if you want to start a business and grow a business, it's that same mindset of, going at it at all costs and at all odds, and just starting it somewhere. And I think that people are trying to find the information on how to do it right, but starting a business is actually, it's all about effort at the end of the day. So, I mean, I could sit there and Google how to start a business and go to school and all these things, but at the end of the day, you know, that's not starting a business. What starting a business is starting a business, and all the information's there, but the action isn't there in a lot of people. So, just starting, and learning along the way is really the best advice I could give. You're going to do things wrong. You're not going to always, do the right thing, but in everything is a lesson, so when you make mistakes, you got to learn from them and do different. And I think the most important part of it, of anything in business, or even just, being an employee and growing it, on a ladder, I think that a lot of people lack reading a room. If you can't read the energy of other humans, like that's probably first things first, because, if you're trying to sell somebody on a car, for instance, and you're just yapping away, and you can't read that these people just need a minute to think, and you don't shut your mouth, you're going to push that sale right out of the door. There's been many times where, I want to buy a car, and this guy's just telling me about the tires on the damn thing. I don't give two about the tires. I, I want to know the car drives good. I want it to be the colors I want, and what's it going to cost? Let's get this thing done. I don't really necessarily want to hear, you yap on about all the features it has all the time. So some people do. You just have to know to read those energies, and, and so forth. So, like, when you're talking to a customer, you got to know how to make them feel comfortable. You got to know how to close the sale. So anybody that wants to start a business, you got to start somewhere. So start anywhere, pick one place, get the name. There's a start. Okay. Now, what are you going to do as far as structure, LLC, S Corp, sole proprietor, whatever, you don't know. Okay. Google it. You got your phone in your hand. I guarantee you, if you were looking for, where you're going to eat today, you'd get on your phone without even, you wouldn't even think about it. You just go, what kind of food, Mexican food, whatever. People don't realize that starting a business is that simple. And then growing the business is just as simple. If you are trying to figure out how to make, grow it and get more revenue, okay, well, what have you done? So if you're at, $100,000 in revenue in your current business, okay, what have you done that's gotten you 100,000? You've sold people on your service, and you've provided a certain amount of service. Okay, so if you want to grow that, provide more service and sell more people, you're going to get more revenue. So, of course, there's other things, along the way, like I was talking about with, taking on loans and getting more equipment and so forth. So again, you got to be smart and strategic about, not letting yourself or your beliefs or what you've been taught your whole life get in your way either. You got to kind of the whole time have that warrior mindset and not worry, if I take this loan and get this big piece of equipment, what if I don't have work for it? Or you could look at it like, I'm going to take this loan, get this big piece of equipment, and I'm going to go get work for it. It's just all about how you look at it, what effort you put into it. And at the end of the day, I mean, we're all going to die. So, I mean, why not try? If you make it a year, you make it 10 years and you fail, well, it's still 1 year more than the other guy, or 10 years more than the other guy. So, and if you fail at 10 years, whatever you did in those 10 years, when you fail, you could start again. And now you know all the things that you learned from all the failures you had. And so now you know what to do different. Just start again. And then maybe it'll only take you 5 years. So, I think that could be, you know, um, it could be dangerous too. I think I've definitely pushed a lot of lines of, like, growing too fast or doing things, I've definitely gotten right on that line. But, again, you're going to learn as you go, and you're going to you'll figure it out. I mean, if like, again, if it fails, you just start again.
High risk, high reward. I also think another really positive a thing to add to that is also po- uh, like your spouse. Having somebody good at home, is definitely key. And I know that sometimes in your videos, you talk a little bit about family and stuff like that. And I'm just curious, how you manage, because I don't manage at all. I'm the worst at work-life balance, and that's the biggest argument of my life. It's just work too much. But how do you manage work-life balance and kids and wife and family and all that stuff with owning a business and doing what you do? Because I love asking guys that, because that's an area that I struggle.
For me, work-life balance is one of those things where if your business needs attention because it's struggling, you give it attention, and your family might need to sacrifice a little bit. Vice versa, if your wife and your kids are, suffering or struggling, your business is going to have to sacrifice a little bit. And I think that over time, those things will coincide and mesh together to where you'll learn how to manage both of them together. And you know, it, it's one of those things where you also have to pick, what do you want? I mean, there's, like, at the end of the day, on the grand scale of things, my company is not huge by any means. To some people, it's astronomical. In the grand scale of things, there's Amazon, right? So it's like, I I want a strong family. I love my family. I'm sick if I'm away from them for a day. But I know internally, I know that means my business is not going to be Amazon, right? Because in order to create Amazon, something's going to have to give there. Um, so you kind of got to pick, what do you want? How big do you want to be? And what's important to you? To me, what's important to me is that my family's healthy, happy, stable, and also that they get to experience, great things that I'm able to provide for them. And simultaneously, I understand that my business may not be as big as it could be because of that. But that's what I have found, that's the life I want to have. I don't need, $40 billion yachts. I'll take one, and get there one day, no problem. And my kids will enjoy the of it. But I'm not going to sacrifice, um, my family's, my family values for the sake of having a big business. Does my family need to learn how to sacrifice some to live the way we live? Absolutely. And I think that that's good for them anyways. We should all have that, we should all have that quality of knowing how to sacrifice. So there's definitely a balance. And I think that just listening to your heart is going to tell you that. And, you said something about having a good spouse is, important in business as well. You need their support and so forth. But, you know, a flower, you got to water it, right? And the thing about plants in general is, when they get water, then they produce oxygen, and then that oxygen goes back into the environment, which then creates water. And so it's a cycle of um, it's the life cycle, basically. So you got to water your plants at home. You got to take care of your family. You got to water them, and then they're going to give you the oxygen to then go and grow your business more, which is going to bring in more fruits to share, more money to do better things. But if you overwater the flower or the plant, it dies. If you underwater it, it dies. And when the plant dies, that's one less plant giving oxygen. So, it's one of those balances where, again, you have to just find out where the perfect balance is to make sure that your ecosystem, speaking, everyone's ecosystem is different, finding the balance of water and non-water and oxygen, and letting the two work off of each other and grow each other. I think that you can grow a business and grow a family together, and that they actually both work together and feed each other. I bring my kids. I just brought my son on the paver the other day, took him out of school early. There's that's the ecosystem there, because he is probably going to be better than me at a lot of things when he's old enough, if he wants to. I'm not going to push him to, but if he wants to take the business, and maybe he will grow it to Amazon type sizes. But that wouldn't happen if I didn't water him and feed him correctly, which then can go and feed the business. So it's a cycle thing for me.
I love it. Everything you're saying resonates, and I know that everybody listening, it resonates with them as well, man. I mean, that's my hardest thing that I deal with, because, like you were saying, business takes, like, people that it bugs me when people are like, like, family's number one, and because family is number one. Don't get me wrong, we're in business to provide a great life for our families and our employees' families, and everybody. But there are more times than not when, especially in our busy season, because we're in Canada, so we're very seasonal. Like, I was supposed to go to, there's a province called Prince Edward Island, super nice vacation spot, little beach house, whatever. We were supposed to go there in July. I pushed it off to August, and now we're at the end of August, and we're not going, because then it's going to be September, because this summer ended up being way busier than we thought. Um, so right there is a decision that I made to choose my business over my family. And that sucks. And that's something that I think about as well. But that being said, then maybe that makes it so that in the wintertime, we can take a nice trip down to Florida, and we can all hang out in Airbnb with the pool, and we'll be booked it. We're going to Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland in my life, or Disney World, whatever one's in Orlando. I've never been in my life, because my dad was a workaholic. I grew up with not my dad wasn't super present because he just worked all the time. So being able to do that sort of stuff and provide that for our kids, go to Disney World and do something that I never got to do as a kid, I'm looking forward to that. And that's the big payoff for me. But I love chatting with you, man. And I guess to kind of like tell people like what's next for you, what's next for Coastal Paving, your content, like where should be people watching out? Like what's next?
What's next? We were just kind of talking like a week or so ago. We're gonna probably start doing like a kind of like a docu series vibe on YouTube. So good, bad, and ugly, just kind of like if you ever seen the show Gold Rush or whatever, kind of that vibe on YouTube as like a long form, basically just the day in day out, running of the business and so forth.
It'll be
So I think
Black Gold Rush.
yeah, it's actually called Black Gold. So
Dude.
that's next. I mean, I'm hoping that it's going to be fun, and I think it'll explain a little bit more. I mean, that's the thing about 15, 30-second clips. You can't explain exactly what's happening, and people don't always exactly understand or see the struggles that each, day or project faces. We all wish, life was perfect and every job was perfect, but in construction, I think me and you both know that's not true. And I think that, showing that side of things of like, you know, what's happening, what's actually happening, and how we're getting through it, and how we're handling it, etc., how the business actually runs and so forth, and what the other people in the company do and so forth. So I think that's kind of what's next for the content side, for Coastal Paving side. um like I was saying earlier, just whatever's worked till now, we're going to do that and do more of it, and keep increasing revenue, and building a balance sheet and a P&L that is strong and stable. And um, either I could pass it down to the kids if they want it, or sell it and go to Disneyland and yachts and Miami and all those things. So that's what's next, I think.
I like it, dude. That's awesome. And you saying that you're going to make long form content gets me excited, because that's something that I'll watch. I love your stuff. I gotta say, like, I'm a fan. You're doing a great job, and I love seeing, like, I'm 29 as well, so I love seeing another. Well, I keep saying us young guys, but I have a couple co-op students that are 16 that work for me, and I feel old when they're around. I'm like, do you guys know? Like, one guy didn't know who Rihanna was, and I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? But it's good to see young guys with families and in business, like, getting after it and chasing their dreams, and like just doing anything, because like you said, one day you're all just going to die anyway. So why not try it? If it fails, who gives a crap? Keep pushing, keep moving forward. And I love it, man. I appreciate you cutting out time today. I know that you're a busy dude. So thank you for coming on the podcast, and you packed a lot of value in the 52 minutes that we managed to speak. So I really appreciate it. And thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I appreciate it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what comes of it. And all the wishes on your success and your family and health, prosperity. Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate these podcasts because it really gives people an opportunity to show and explain their true selves. Which those little clips don't, really give you the chance to do all the time. So, yeah, I was an honor to be on here, and I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. This podcast brought to you by our good friends over at Komatsu. Thank you, Michael, for coming on.